So real quick, for the next 45 minutes or so, we've had quite a few overviews of Web3 and blockchain today, so I'll just recap a few things there as well and walk through a bit of a history lesson, which I know was also touched on. We'll go through some metaverse trends as well and use cases, and then we should have some time for Q&A and open discussion before the NFTs get rolling. I think there was actually a poll question that we had teed up, so I don't know if it's happened already or not, but essentially, given everything you've heard today, where you were before you walked into the session today, and how you feel now from a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, I am an expert in this space, ready to go kill it, and 1 being, I'm just kind of starting out. Where are we? Where are we feeling right now? Shout it out, no wrong answer. Judgment-free zone 6, look at you up in front, fancy pants. I see you, Drew. Where's everyone else? No wrong answer, there you go. 2, that's okay, 5. Excellent, okay? You're not by yourself, right? So in as much as obviously the cryptocurrency market's been around for years now, the technology has been established, everyone's still learning together, as you've heard today, so you're not alone. Bit of a quick history lesson, and a few folks have talked about this today already, but I think it's important because irrespective of what we talk about in the next several minutes, from a how perspective, if we're not really grounded on what we're actually doing and why the heck we should even care, then frankly, none of it matters. There's a lot of buzzwords floating around, news articles, et cetera, but let's just ground on really Web 1. So at the start of the journey, around 1993 was Mosaic, okay? So that was the first known internet browser. Later came Netscape, which, as we know, was bought by AOL. And these were mainly desktop browser access focused with dedicated infrastructure. We call this the information age, right? So as you move to interaction and Web 2.0, that was really about social networking, cloud-driven computing, mobile-first access, obviously Facebook, now Meta, but Facebook was wildly popular with the usage increasing and people finding that there was really value and enhanced experience with connecting with each other in this way and with businesses on the web. Then you've got Airbnb and Uber. That introduced a different kind of interaction as well between customers and services driven by inventory access, matching availability, and efficiencies of matching end customer to end customer, but as a provider. The market cap of internet companies was $5.9 trillion over 20 years ago. Today, the top 5 internet companies alone are over $3 trillion just by themselves, right? So tremendous evolution there. And so now moving on to immersion and Web 3.0, where decentralization, ironically, is at the center of this technology. So even in a crypto winter, as it were, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're still at the top for the largest 2 cryptocurrencies, as we know. Maker, that's a protocol which was really the first decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO, that's built on the Ethereum blockchain, and so forth. So when you talk about Web3, I think folks say that and might be thinking it's a small red round fruit, and you think it's an apple, but it's really a tomato. Okay, so the definition of what we're actually talking about here matters. So really, I define it, Web3 is the next generation of the internet, which utilizes token-based economics and decentralization in the form of distributed ledger technology, or DLT. Blockchain is a form of DLT. Blockchains can be permissioned, which is like consortium style, where the players are known and there's governance, or permissionless, which many folks are familiar with, and that's of course open and public, like Bitcoin or Ethereum. Some people use this term, again, as a catch-all for everything, but it's especially important when you think about the application of why you would want to use this type of technology and which particular use cases might make sense for your firm. So from the first days of commerce, right, businesses have created, operated, and participated within ecosystems to exchange value. However, this value is often linear, analog, and unidirectional, like the graphic on the left. In today's digital world, it's a multifaceted, multi-sided type of value exchange wherein businesses interact with customers, customers interact with customers, et cetera. So these digital ecosystems embrace the complexities of really endless connections to be self-organizing, dynamic, and adaptive. For Web 2.0, examples of digital ecosystems would be platforms like Uber or Airbnb, as I mentioned before. This model is actually so pervasive that of the top 10 companies worldwide, based on market cap, like a Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Tesla, et cetera, they all use it. So shifting to this rapidly growing digital space is really becoming a key requirement. So talk about not having any company left behind, like it's a must-have. So that key requirement is going to continue to deliver value with existing and with new business models, and really implementing a digital ecosystem with digital technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, IoT or Internet of Things, 5G, fundamentally enables really redefining of customers' value and creating new ways to exchange that value. So the blockchain benefits. There's been a lot of discussion today about why we should care. And really for years, blockchain has been a solution looking for a problem, as many of us probably know. Blockchain is really being used by organizations to aid in the adoption of digital ecosystems. It provides compelling capabilities that enable the interaction between people and things that may render really existing models obsolete or really truly ineffective over time. A blockchain-enabled digital ecosystem has all the same complexities and facets of any other digital ecosystem. However, I believe there's several distinct advantages. These include self-sovereign data, providing participants with data, confidentiality, and privacy over their data. This also is used for specific access control through blockchain-enabled decentralization or self-sovereign identity. Then you've got the fact that it's tamper-resistant. So as more digitization occurs, it is vital to secure data in shared ecosystems where there may be many different actors and devices interacting with that data. There's an increased need for cryptographically signed and irrevocable transaction records as well, and anonymization of that data is a key factor here too. When you think about peer-to-peer data collaboration, blockchain was built as a shared ecosystem database instead of a relational database. So while databases can be architected to be shared across companies, it requires custom development and other technologies to really do so. Blockchain, on the other hand, fosters interoperability, standardization of data, better quality, and overall availability. Then you've got distributed governance. So this is actually one that many blockchain enthusiasts talk a lot about. It's this notion that permissionless blockchains are not owned by any one person or just a few companies. The downstream benefits of using a blockchain approach is that with business terms and conditions or that type of governance can really be shared among the participants through smart contracts. And in some cases, some or all of the governance can be implemented technically as a DAO, or decentralized autonomous organization. And then lastly, there's enabling digitization of business. So blockchain can be an enabler to really shifting to a digital business by enabling additional technical capabilities, such as tokenization of assets, digital twins, decentralized applications, or dApps, and decentralized consensus mechanisms. As an example, digital twins is when there's both a digital and a physical representation of something. So if I'm in manufacturing and I'd like an employee to maybe practice building something first on a car, they can do it in the digital realm before I put him or her on the line. That'd be a good use case for digital twins. As another example, within supply chain, take GE Aviation's digital group from 2 years ago in 2020. They identified that blockchain-enabled ecosystem has unique capabilities and qualities that would help the company address inefficiencies and potential fraud. It addressed regulatory compliance and appropriate utilization of airline engine parts. So according to PwC at that time, it was revealed that using blockchain in aviation for efficiency gains could really boost industry revenue as much as 4% annually, or $40 billion. So real value. Analysts also found that it could cut maintenance, repairs, and overall costs by 5% annually, or another $3.5 billion. Ultimately, GE designed a blockchain-enabled ecosystem platform that was inclusive and really enabled trustworthy transactions across the entire aviation industry. Now there was transparency in the aviation supply chain, where any of the partners could track and audit their products throughout the entire supply chain. The solution provides their customers the ability to authenticate the quality of their products, but also gave them control, which was super important. And it also reduced counterfeit products. So again, when you think about the applicability of blockchain or any of these other technologies within your firm, once you can ground on why and what you're actually using it for, from a true business case and value perspective, these types of results would be ones you'd want to be looking for. I mentioned earlier that there were two types of blockchains. So there's permissioned. That's really best for wanting to know, who your participants are. Know your customer, or KYC, is also key here, and making sure there's actually governance among the actual participants within that consortium environment. So supply chain would be a good example there. Also for where you need a private network that's leveraged, as well as if you're in a highly regulated space. Permissionless, again, that's going to be open, very transparent. It's going to be your Bitcoins, your Ethereums, that type of thing. If I were to go right now on looking up the Ethereum blockchain, I can see every single transaction that has been executed on the chain. So you might imagine, if you're a financial institution, a bank of some kind, you likely don't want every single transaction that you make to be publicly available for anyone to see on a blockchain. So again, key to anchor on the use cases. So let's pick on financial services and insurance. We've got payments, trade finance, settlement, and KYC, digital identity. So while blockchain can make these cases more effective and more efficient, it's an understatement to say that the space continues to evolve and needs more regulatory clarity. Just last week, actually, I was at Sibos in Amsterdam, which is a really large financial services conference, and I had the pleasure to be talking about global trade finance and decentralization. And so related to the regulatory landscape, one of the topics was about BIS, or the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, and that earlier this year, they stated, quote, DLT was still evolving and may pose various unforeseen risks, end quote. Rather remarkable. I know you're shocked by that. So with this in mind, in this proposal, they actually said we suggest a capital add-on for companies that hold crypto assets to cover infrastructure risk. So what I found really interesting about it, and it's an amazing read if you haven't read it, but that's just who I am as a person. If you actually dig down into it, what I found interesting was that while I can fully understand why this committee or any other would want to make sure that things are done in a safe way, that costs are covered from an infrastructure perspective, et cetera, what was really interesting is that in the proposal, they intentionally excluded algorithmic stablecoins, saying that such a stablecoin was deemed safer and so wouldn't require a large capital requirement, so a lower capital requirement for these institutions. Now, for those of you that may be at a 1 or a 2 or a 3, an algorithmic stablecoin is really just simply a coin that uses an algorithm to stay pegged to the particular currency. So an example of an algorithmic stablecoin was Terra USD, which even if you're not as close to the space, it was a huge debacle in May of this year, wherein the peg didn't work, the algorithm couldn't keep up, Terra plummeted, and within about a day or so, $14 billion was lost. This happened in May, mid-May of this year. Now, ironically, the proposal that I just referenced came out in June. So imagine the irony that the proposal comes out in June, just weeks prior, $14 billion is lost with Terra USD. So again, while That illuminates that there's still some lessons to be learned, that there's still some relatively unpredictable behaviors that can continue to happen, and that preventative or even proactive measures likely won't solve for every single issue that may arise. There's still a lot of things happening in the space, a lot of anomalies going on. And so, at least in this case, there's time for people to comment, and I'm sure there'll be other versions of this proposal, but again, this is why we have to anchor on what we've seen, what we've learned, and try to make the most sense out of it collectively, especially from the regulatory environment piece. So as I was talking with the team, Megan and Lori and others, and it's Megan's birthday today, by the way, so we will have NFTinis, okay, later in your honor. And we were walking through, okay, well, what do folks want to hear about, right? It's the end of the day. You're standing in between them and cocktails. I said, okay, well, let's walk through maybe some key considerations. Top 10, as I have it here. And we'll talk about the metaverse later in a second. But in fairness, building these blockchain-enabled digital ecosystems, it's hard. Like, hyper complex, super hard, and perhaps even harder than maybe the technology itself is convincing different stakeholders across your company that they should care. Because guess what? They've got a roadmap already, and they've got plans for the dollars and investments of what they're gonna do. And without a hyper compelling why and where the true business value is, they're not necessarily gonna easily trade what they already had planned to go and look at your blockchain thing or go look at your Web3 thing, right? So we'll just kind of go one by one. First, demystify blockchain as much as you can. It's in full hype mode. There's many misconceptions about what the technology can do, what it cannot do. I would offer it is not the panacea of all things that might ail you or your company. So choose wisely, right, what those use cases might be. Even with cryptocurrency being in a bear market, oftentimes people will conflate what's happening in the cryptocurrency market with the underlying technology. That's a mistake, right? There's actual merits in the underlying technology itself, irrespective of what's happening in the market. So I'd recommend educational and envisioning workshops with your key leaders to really show them the potential. Be prepared to really articulate blockchain in business terms where the results are very clear as well, and you can track it. Toss out abstract buzzwords. They're fun. You might hear them on your favorite news channel, right? But abandon words like trust system and decentralization, which again, are pretty abstract, and they're really completely removed from any sort of value statement that your organization and your leaders really care about. Instead, talk about how blockchain can actually solve challenges and even create new opportunities for your business. Third, new forms of value exchange. Don't just focus on your existing B2B relationships, but really balance that with identifying new business models. Remember, value isn't always just monetary. It can include compliance risk mitigation, reputational value, information, and other non-monetary exchanges. In some cases, those aspects can actually be equally or even more valuable in parts of your digital ecosystem. You don't have to have all the ideas. Gain inspiration from other industries. See what they're doing with the technology. What wins might have happened in another space, and see if that's applicable to yours as well. Someone else's transformation journey lessons likely can be adapted to maybe some of your specific use cases and transferred to your industry space, so keep that in mind. Cannot underscore this one enough. Creating a compelling vision. So like anything else, blockchain ecosystems require a structure and roadmap that will support and anticipate current and future participant needs. I was actually presenting at a board meeting in August for a digital infra company, and there were varying levels of knowledge in the room with the board members, kind of just like today. And at the end, one of the more seasoned board members raised his hand and said, well, let's just say that we're okay with, the technology that we have in our stack. Like, what would you say to convince us that we should move to blockchain? And respectfully, I looked at him and said, well, I actually wouldn't try to convince you to leverage blockchain, because again, If your company is absolutely fine with what they have, it's effective, it's efficient, it's doing all the things. Blockchain, again, is just a different kind of how that can be more effective or more efficient for some use cases in some industries. And again, that's really important. So again, if you're not clear on the why or the what for the business problems that you're trying to solve, the how of blockchain really doesn't matter. Number 6, blockchain is only a component of the ecosystem. So while blockchain provides a vital component of a digital ecosystem, there's still other technologies that are vital as well. Number 7, blockchain-enabled digital ecosystems are largely inconstant, so really be open to those complexities. Through independent research of over 70 digital ecosystems that use blockchain, the research confirmed that there are fragmented and complex implementations of different types that make these ecosystems confusing, misleading, and difficult to analyze. So raise your hand if you're excited about that challenge, right? Further, in the US as well, there's still a level of regulatory clarity that must be provided in the digital asset space. President Biden issued his executive order on March 9th of this year, which really kickstarted a lot of discussion on Capitol Hill, which I personally think is a really great thing. And it talked about how the space needs to be accessible and safe, and how the US would be exploring CBDCs or central bank digital currencies and the like. So fantastic. Now, in fact, just a few weeks ago, if you're continuing to follow the bouncing ball, on October 3rd, the Financial Stability Oversight Council released its first major report on cryptocurrencies, emphasizing the need for better rules and regulations and calling out the regulatory gaps. And this was in direct response to Section 6 of Biden's executive order. So again, you got to keep up with how our own US government is looking at these things, and almost especially if you're in the financial institution space or support that space, it's really important to stay mindful of where the government's going with this, because, I mean, there's a use case right there. How will your company need to respond if and when the US has its own CBDC and is using that much like we use any other cash or cash equivalent today? So where the government lands on this will likely have implications to blockchain technology. Number 8, be deliberate with your business model. Blockchain-enabled digital ecosystems tend to have varied purpose, legal models, economics, and organization, combined with most consortiums that are really in development. There's really 3 common models here. The first is founder-led, so that's really a single company which defines, architects, builds, owns, and operates the solution. This is usually picked for either speed to market considerations, compliance needs, or competitive advantage considerations. Number 2 is partnership-driven. That's just an exclusive group of companies that share decision-making authority as a JV or a joint venture. Ecosystems in this model have mutual financial incentive for success. And then the third is just industry-driven. And this is governed by elected representatives that are designed to be a non-biased ecosystem focused on a specific industry and really capitalizes on the capabilities of the companies therein. Number 9, avoid low value and relevance quick hits. Again, it's the buzzwords. It's the getting lulled into, ooh, let's move quickly, and then sacrificing relevance. That's a big mistake, right? Building a digital ecosystem requires a clear understanding of how the data evolves and what it integrates with across the end-to-end process. And lastly, get out of the lab. Oftentimes, executives are quickly mentioning blockchain fatigue from all the different proofs of concepts or POCs that show the legitimacy of the technology, but not the relevance to their business. Again, why the heck are we doing this? Okay, so have a plan to rapidly move from your POC stage to a controlled pilot to your production environment. That's really essential. Another point I'd underscore, and it's really from the first slide that I showed on the Web3 journey, from Mosaic to Netscape to others. So notice how the creators of Mosaic, they didn't create Netscape, nor did the creators of Airbnb and Uber create Bitcoin, right? So this isn't to pick on these companies, but rather to illuminate that not every company must be a first mover to be successful. Blockbuster Video, they didn't create Netflix either, okay? Oftentimes, the very foundational things that make one company successful make it that much harder to disrupt themselves for innovation. So what might this mean for your business and for blockchain? And what muscle memory needs to be disrupted? Which alternative ways of thinking must occur for this technology to be adopted and sustained in your business? More questions than answers, but they'll need answers before you talk to your key stakeholders and try to convince them that they should be doing this. So we're going to pivot to the metaverse, but I can pause here if there's any questions that might have come in from Slido, or I can wait to the end, but happy to pause here for a moment before we pivot to the metaverse.
We had one question come in from Slido.
Okay.
What possibilities and opportunities does Microsoft foresee for the industrial metaverse and industrial Web3?
So that's a great question, and I do have an answer that I actually can address after, only because in this capacity today, I'm speaking as Welena Banner versus on behalf of Microsoft. So after the session's over, I'm happy to talk about the industrial metaverse and actually the journey at my employer in terms of all the things we've been able to do in the last 7 years. Okay, more questions to come. So the metaverse, what is it, right? It's really just a collective virtual space created by the convergence of virtually enhanced physical and digital reality. In other words, it's really a device-independent mechanism. It's not owned by a single vendor, and it's an independent virtual economy enabled by digital currencies and non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. It really represents a combinatorial innovation, as it requires multiple technologies and trends to really function. Contributing tech capabilities include augmented reality, flexible work styles, head-mounted displays, the Internet of Things, or IoT, 5G, artificial intelligence, and spatial technologies. To understand the concepts of a metaverse, think of it as, again, the next generation, next version of the Internet, which started as individual bulletin boards and independent online destinations, and eventually, these destinations became sites on a virtual shared space, similar to how the metaverse will develop. How do we access it? So again, it really spans between physical places and digital spaces, and mixed reality is really just the name of the game. So this enables us to collaborate and exchange value through shared interactions and experiences. And as one recent example, leadership in Dubai announced at the Dubai Metaverse Strategy on July 26th in the summer that it was aiming to attract more than 1,000 blockchain and metaverse companies and support more than 40,000 virtual jobs by 2030. That's not that far away. And this strategy is part of a broader vision to make Dubai one of the world's top metaverse economies. So how did we get here with the metaverse? A bit of an evolution here too. Primarily it was with gaming, starting back in 2003. And there's been really significant popularity, leveraging mixed reality through games like World of Warcraft, Minecraft, Fortnite, etc. Then we started to get into the really fun stuff with celebrities and companies purchasing land in the metaverse with deals like virtual land adjacent to Snoop Dogg's Sandbox estate selling for $450,000 in Ethereum in 2021. So again, people are FOMOing in, the fear of missing out, into this space as well. But really outside of gaming, what do we actually do in the metaverse, especially as it relates to business? So there are some consumer interest topics like shopping and retail. So really enabling social shopping, virtual stores, try-on at home experiences, and virtual fitting rooms in the metaverse, creating, again, that connection between the digital and the physical. Also, digital goods provide virtual things for virtual worlds where luxury brands in particular can offer non-physical goods for sale and show off their status in the metaverse. Health, like attending a telehealth appointment with your physician in the metaverse. Learning and training, it's a natural fit for metaverse spaces. And again, works especially well for simulations of what could be an unsafe scenario, and really generating a lot of empathy that way. Traveling, of course, who doesn't want to teleport, right? So traveling to another space in the digital world, and then just hanging out with your friends, bringing together people in a community, and folks that share common interests. For business topics, though, in particular, there's some similar overlap there, too, in terms of use cases. Of course, one is remote collaboration, and that's, of course, using a virtual space and extended reality to really streamline collaborative design, construction, and maintenance with your customers and your colleagues. Remote operations, so think operating machinery with humans, but in a loop that's safe and a safe distance with your precision as well. So again, really intricate things that you could do, being able to leverage the metaverse for operations there. Meetings and events, that's a no-brainer. Taking advantage of those digital tools for remote and hybrid working, which all of us seem to be experts at now in a kind of post-COVID environment. Training in the workplace, disaster recovery and catastrophe modeling, and digital marketing. So creating responsive marketing that creates new channels and immersive experiences for customers to really learn and interact with your organization. So there are really some key paradigm shifts at play in the metaverse. Starting with the mindset. It was very binary, on and off, physical and digital, and now it's seamless and persistent, right? Skill set. It was about exposure and transactions, and now it's about engagement and highly immersive experiences. And for your tool set, 2D flat screens and kind of hand-based gestures, and now, again, 360-degree immersive engagement and full body sensing control. I don't know fully how I feel about all of it, I gotta be honest, but there's a lot of application there. I mean, full body sensing control, you're right, it's a lot. So, but why now? Why now? Moving left to right, the evolution is now. We're at the beginning of the next wave of digital disruption. From the economic standpoint, this will be a multi-trillion-dollar market opportunity that will impact everything we do in some way. And then from everything, just everything. It's already redefining how society interacts with each other, much like how the internet changed our lives. In many ways, I actually liken it to how people used to meet each other in the dating world. You remember that? You remember you used to meet people in person, right? 15 to 20 years ago, you'd ask someone how they met their mate, and they'd say, oh, I was introduced by a friend, or I met them at church, or at a party, grocery store. Today, more times than not, if I ask someone how they met their mate, they'll tell me which site, right, that they might have matched with their mate on and how things are going then. Seemed a bit far-fetched, but now super commonplace, and likely the response more than I met them in person. So you never know. Specifically for financial services, so we'll pick on this industry again. Here are a few ways that the metaverse will transform it. Employee engagement, having a new channel for delivering customer experiences, and developing new products and business models. On employee engagement, as one example, I was in a business meeting a couple of months ago, and the customer was sharing with me that they have their team meetings using 3D holograms. And when I asked about the business value of holograms, outside of the really cool factor, because I saw it and it was pretty cool, they said that the business value of holograms is engagement and accessibility. So people don't have to travel and fly around, so you're kind of saving on your T&E budget. But also from a retention play perspective, highly immersive, and they were going to be measuring over time, of course, the retention numbers, but any respective impact of what things like that could really mean. So again, cost savings, retention, and they really found that these types of engagements were so highly immersive that the attendance of these particular team meetings were actually at an all-time high, which I thought was kind of cool. To deep dive on employee engagement, this can mean building a virtual headquarters in the metaverse, employee onboarding and collaboration through virtual reality or augmented reality, Virtual trading desks, enabling accessibility with avatars, and really reskilling in the metaverse as well. For new customer experiences, we've got servicing customers in a virtual branch using augmented reality, new ways to visualize and manage your finances, new ways for advisory and how to engage there. So imagine for wealth management having a customer meeting with your financial advisor in the metaverse. And of course, new marketplaces in the metaverse as well. Then we've got new products and business models, which can impact mortgage applications, financing and minting NFT assets in the metaverse, and net asset transfer mechanisms and more. For NFTs as an example, Japan just announced a couple of weeks ago that it will invest in metaverse and NFT expansion. The country has steadily been promoting investment in digital technology, including through tax incentives for companies that embrace a digital future. The Prime Minister is reportedly looking into a proposal to offer tax exemptions to Japanese crypto companies in order to entice them to keep their business in the country and further fuel the nation's growing Web3 industry. Conversely, I just read last week that CNN is dropping the development of its marketplace selling collectible moments, which are tied to major news events, which really pissed a lot of people off. It angered people, right? Because they've spent thousands of dollars and were sold on exclusive access and features that were going to be coming in the future to build on top of that. And so this was CNN's NFT play, and the customers really saw this as a bit of a rug pull, which of course is never good. So ultimately, it depends on the scenario, it depends on the space, it depends on the country as well in terms of the respective approach and what might make sense. There's a lot of variability that definitely still exists. I think the other key thing to underscore as well, even in the CNN example, this is about how are we learning from what other companies and other spaces are doing or are not doing, and how might that be applicable to your industry and your particular company about what perhaps you could do or should do and not. And then lastly, there are a few banks who are experimenting in the space here. JP Morgan references in this report different opportunities in the metaverse. So whether it's really large tech players, such as a Microsoft, for example, planning to create realistic workspaces, or Ariana Grande holding a concert at Fortnite, the opportunities presented by interactive digital worlds really do seem a bit limitless. They see here JP Morgan companies of all shapes and sizes entering the metaverse in different ways, including household names like Walmart, Nike, Gap, Verizon, Hulu, PwC, Adidas, Atari, and others. Deutsche Bank used AltSpace virtual reality and Microsoft Mesh, actually, in this case, to transform employee engagement. And BNP Paribas, they launched a virtual reality app where customers can access their banking information in a virtual reality environment. And if the experience is immersive and is stickier, imagine how this might be able to improve retention metrics within your company for your customer base. In summary, it's a pretty exciting time, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot that still needs to be unpacked and solidified from a regulatory landscape perspective, and it differs country to country as well. Because countries in our kind of global economy are taking different approaches, whether it's from incentivizing companies to stay in the space and to innovate there, respective regulations that could also impact your global business. These are things that we must be paying attention to. For the right use cases, with the appropriate technology, Web3 and blockchain can be a clear differentiator and disruptor to many industries. Happy to pause here if we have any questions that came in from Slido, but feel free to also reach out to me and we can stay connected and chat over our NFT as well, because I don't know about you, but it's happy hour time. Any questions from the audience or on Slido? Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you paying attention all the way up until happy hour, and we'll chat outside.